Hey guys, this is Slaughter. Hello and welcome to another video. So, you guys were able to choose the topic today, and for those of you who don't know, I quite frequently use the community tab to do everything from announcing streams or merch releases or whatever else to letting you guys choose the topic for a video. So, if you haven't subscribed with notifications on and you want to be aware of these community posts so you can help choose what kind of content gets made, you might want to do those two things now. Also, I hear a lot of people say they didn't get notifications or they weren't able to see my video when it released. Well, if you click that bell, you have to make sure you click always notify, and you have to make sure you've allowed notifications on your phone or whatever else. Anyway, let's talk about the Rise of Skywalker and the Battle of Exegol, but I'm not going to be complaining, I've done enough of that. Instead, I want to look at the lore, and specifically where the Resistance got their absolutely massive fleet from. And the good guys here had a lot of ships, over 16,000. So that's a lot of sort of justification we have to do to figure out where all these ships can be tracked down to. So just a bit of background. We know that the Rise of Skywalker takes place about a year after the events of episodes 7 and 8, and that during that time the Resistance, as led by Leia, spent a lot of time trying to recruit more allies. We see this in books like Star Wars Resistance Reborn or comics like Star Wars Allegiance. While the good guys in these works do find some success, certainly not the amount that would justify this vast fleet of thousands. Alright, so when we look at the fleet, we see a lot of different types of vessels, which does help us explain where the ships can be traced to. And probably the easiest explanation for, if not the vast majority, at least a good amount of these ships, is that they came from private people or organizations. We see lots of little freighters or even small capital ships. It's quite easy to imagine where the Xyston Class freighters, for example, might have come from. Just ordinary people across the galaxy who wanted to help, and that's even what the Final Order recognizes, as they're overwhelmed by the sheer numbers they're facing. However, you can't explain all of this fleet simply by ordinary people. Although a lot of these craft could convincingly belong to civilians, many of them just practically could not. For example, we see MC-85 star cruisers, which, even when optimized, take hundreds or thousands of crew members to run. We see large military-type Mon Calamari capital ships, we see the Episode 8 bombers, we see other X-Wings and CR-90s and other military warships, and basically we see everything here except a Starhawk. So there's actually a few explanations for these which work together in a way to perhaps believably give the numbers that we need to make up. A very, very large portion of these ships would have come from the defense fleets of planets across the galaxy. For example, we know that Naboo starfighters partook in the battle here. These probably came from, well, Naboo. We know that the New Republic pretty heavily demilitarized after the Empire was taken care of, and that type of action would have encouraged local systems to build up their own defense fleets, which sort of mirrors what the Republic did before the Clone Wars. As the central military power becomes, well, less powerful, systems which can afford to arm themselves will generally do so to protect themselves from aggression. It's quite likely that many of these individual fleets would not have been outwardly aggressive against the First Order until this point, just because they were trying to stay out of their gaze. The First Order could overwhelm any single system, but just like with the Empire, they could not take over a unified galaxy, so they used things like fear. And we do see some of that in the Star Wars Allegiance comic. When someone is seen as helpful to the Resistance or sympathetic of the Resistance, the First Order comes down hard on that individual system. So basically, because the galaxy was not able to unite, the First Order was by far the most powerful faction, at least after the attack on Starkiller Base. Ironically, or perhaps coincidentally, as was the case with the Death Stars, the introduction of the Xyston Class Star Destroyer and that message of fear sent out by Palpatine would have been one factor which caused the galaxy to sort of come together under one banner, if for only a little while. And I mean, this is basically the same thing that happened to a lesser extent during the Galactic Civil War or in Legends during the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. So So a portion of the fleet here would have been supplied by planets and militias, and to be honest, that could have been anything from small capital ships to very large cruisers. And this ties into my next point. We also have the navy of the New Republic. Now, of course, much of the New Republic navy was decimated by the Hosnian cataclysm, but as I discussed in a prior video, that would not have represented all of their ships. It's true that given the fact that Hosnian Prime was the current New Republic capital, that there would have been a substantial force in the system, but it wouldn't have been every ship. And I did a video talking about this. We've seen various self-sufficient outposts across the galaxy in canon, and there would have been other battle groups and fleets. Now, as I mentioned in prior videos, this is actually addressed by the novelization for The Last Jedi, which says specifically that surviving portions of the New Republic fleet were split up and taken by senators to guard their planets. Now, I would say that that's probably true for many fleets, but there would have been capital ships across the galaxy laying in wait, organizing resistance against the First Order, or openly engaging them in battle. And to be honest, this is one of the things that I think was really hurt by Episode 8, sort of making the galaxy much smaller and making the resistance smaller. It makes no sense for all of the forces united against a large galactic threat to be basically in one place at the same time, especially where the New Republic was a fully established faction with a military. Regardless, I choose to believe that existing New Republic starfleets heeded the call during the attack on Exegol and thus chose to join the fleet, helping to explain the presence of so many large Mon Calamari cruisers. On that note, we also know that the Mon Calamari specifically joined the Resistance, and I do think it likely that they were probably producing and selling ships for system defense fleets, again helping to explain the makeup of the fleet. So you take these various elements, you add in a lot of individuals just looking to help, and I do think you can reasonably get to the number of 16,000 that we've seen suggested in the lore. It's a bit more difficult to explain how Lando got a hold of them all in such short time. I think that should have been a plot point for the movies, and in fact an earlier version of Episode 9 had the Resistance trying to activate an old beacon on Coruscant, basically to send out a message to unify the galaxy. I would have quite liked that in Episode 9. Maybe have that instead of chasing down one of the things. But guys, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. No hashtag ask a question today. We'll get back to that soon. But until next time guys, have a good one. And as always, may the Force be with you.